Australia's debt is about to cross $1 trillion for the first time in history. This is big. And recent evidence that has come to light shows this was not some innocent accounting mistake. This was not, oops, inflation happened. This was a chain of big, reckless financial decisions, blunders, cover-ups, redactions, money being thrown around like it was monopoly cash. Some of the issues are even linked to corruption scandals and serious misconduct. Hey guys, it's Scott here. Now, you've probably seen the headlines everywhere. Jim Chalmers is about to hand down the May budget. Before he even stands up to speak, Australia will have smashed through the $1 trillion in debt mark. And you might think, okay, that's terrible. Maybe they just miscalculated. Maybe the economy turned. Maybe it was just bad luck. Absolutely not. When you actually piece together what's been coming out over the last few months, scattered across different news articles, different reviews, it paints a picture that is honestly shocking. This debt did not just happen. It has been cooking for years. One reckless move after another, one secret after another.
But it's not surprising, Deputy Speaker, that Labor members would defend the disgraceful action of union members abusing local people on social media. Well, why wouldn't they defend them? When they've taken $15 billion, when $15 billion goes missing from big build sites, primarily to bikie gangs via the CFMEU, when the Labor government goes quiet, says there's no problem, no inquiry, no need for a royal commission because this government is corrupt.
Now, because there are independent reviews, parliamentary pressure, and internal leaks, the truth is just starting to come to the surface now, and what's coming out is truly ugly. I have never seen a government make these kinds of financial decisions and still stand there pretending everything is fine. Some of this stuff is borderline criminal. So in this video, I'm going to break it down in plain English. No jargon, no fluff, just the backstory, the parts they hoped you wouldn't connect, the decisions that led us straight to 1 trillion, because when you see it piece by piece, you'll realize this was predictable. I've done all the research and pulled it all together right here so that you don't have to. I do property and economy every single day, so hit the bell icon and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Okay, so let's start with the first punch in the gut. Before we even talk about 1 trillion, we need to talk about the $54 billion budget blowout that only came out because the government was pressured in Parliament. Think about that. Treasury was asked about the medium-term budget position. They couldn't give a clear number. They were pushed, forced to go back and run the numbers. Then they came back and said, oh, by the way, it's actually 54 billion. 54 billion. Let's be clear, when the government spends more than it earns, that gap becomes a deficit. And when you run a deficit, you borrow money. And when you borrow year after year, that becomes debt. So a blowout today is a bigger debt tomorrow. This is Finance 101. And what made it worse was the messaging. Jim Chalmers initially tried to downplay it, suggested it was about low income for the government, they weren't collecting enough money. Then Treasury officials said, no, that is not the case. It was actually bigger government spending. So what is it? Is it less revenue or is it government spending? Because when you're handling almost $1 trillion of other people's money, you don't get to shrug and guess. Australians pay some of the highest taxes in the developed world. If you're going to tax people that hard, at least have your numbers straight. At least be transparent. And this is just the first layer, because the deeper you go, the uglier it gets.
The Treasurer has spent years dishonestly claiming others had hit this milestone, and yet in truth it is going to happen on his watch. Will the Treasurer confirm that, for the very first time in Australia's history, Australia's debt will soon hit $1 trillion?
Kind of you to refer to him as the Deputy Leader, Mr Speaker. For now it is, yeah. For now it is.
Members on my right, can everyone just please show some respect into this chamber? It's absolutely ridiculous.
Now, I've never met an Australian that doesn't mind paying taxes. What most Aussies want to know is that their tax money is being spent appropriately and for the greater good. Now, the agency managing the debt is under review. Now let's talk about the Australian Office of Financial Management, the AOFM. These are the people who actually raise the money. They issue the bonds, they manage the debt portfolio, they're supposed to make sure we borrow at the lowest cost possible. This is the engine room, and right now that engine room is under independent review by former RBA Deputy Governor Guy Debelle. Why? Because nearly half the staff have left or been made redundant over the past year. Morale is reportedly low. Internal dissatisfaction is high. And in public service survey data, a notable percent of staff said they had observed conduct they consider corrupt. Let that sink in. This is the agency managing almost $1 trillion, and it's being reviewed for structure, governance, and capability at the exact moment our debt is exploding. You cannot make this up. If this was a private company managing your super fund, you would be demanding that heads roll. But we're just told it's normal. Well, guys, it is not normal, and this needs the spotlight shined directly upon it. Now, this is the part that made me furious. It's a little technical, so stay with me here. I'm going to keep this as simple as I can. Now, the government has been borrowing long-term at close to 5% interest. At the same time, that large chunk of borrowed cash has been sitting at the Reserve Bank, earning less than that. So in plain English, they're borrowing at a higher rate and earning a lower rate on the same pool of money. If you borrowed $100 at 5%, you'd owe $5 in interest. If you parked that $100 at 3%, you'd earn $3. You're actually down $2. Now, someone might say, why borrow money to store it and not immediately invest it into something productive? Governments do so to keep cash reserves to pay bills and handle market shocks. The issue is scale. If you need $100, you borrow $100, you accept a small loss and move on. But under the current strategy, the government has been borrowing much more than needed and holding very large cash balances. So instead of borrowing $100 and losing $2, it's like borrowing $1,000, a bigger pool of money, and taking a much larger hit. Now multiply that across tens of billions of dollars. The estimated extra cost under the strategy is more than $200 million a year. And when you are already heading toward $1 trillion in debt, that choice absolutely matters. Okay, so let's zoom out for a moment. It's not only about the size of the debt, but also at the rate it is growing. Australia's gross government debt has gone from around 9.6% of GDP in 2007 to about, now wait for it, 49.8% in 2024. That's roughly a 418% increase. Let's compare that to some similar countries. Now, UK debt grew by about 135% over the same period. US debt grew by around 87%. Canada has around 73% debt growth. Yes, other countries have more total debt, but the growth rate of our debt has been so extreme. It has become so extreme that international institutions have started warning Australia to get its debt trajectory under control. We are no longer in the low debt, safe buffer category, which Australia has been for years. We are now in moderate territory. The responsible moment to stop is now. We need to turn it around right now. But wait, it doesn't end here. There is another layer to it. Interest costs. Australia is paying around $2 billion per month in interest. That could hit $3 billion per month later this decade. That's money that doesn't build a hospital, doesn't fix a road, doesn't reduce your tax bill. It means your tax bill needs to go up. This money goes just to service debt. Debt itself is not automatically bad. Big companies carry debt all the time. The key question is simple. Is your income growing faster than your interest bill? Think of your own household for a moment. If your salary is rising 7% a year and your mortgage costs 5%, you're fine. Your income outruns the interest. But if your mortgage costs are climbing at 5% and your income is growing at 2%, you are squeezed, your household is squeezed. The debt starts eating your future. That's the danger here. Australia's productivity growth has been weak. Economic growth has slowed down, yet interest costs are climbing. When interest costs start rising faster than your economic growth, debt starts becoming extremely heavy. At that point, the government only has two levers left. It can, one, cut spending, or two, raise taxes. And given what we've seen so far, which one do you honestly think they will choose? And just remember, it is middle Australia, it is the hardest working Australians that will get hit with the biggest tax increases. So who's going to pay for this? You will. Now here's the part no one likes to say out loud. When debt rises and deficits blow out, the government has the two choices: cut spending or raise revenue, or in other words, raise taxes. Let's be honest, they rarely choose the first one. So where does the revenue come from? Where does the extra cash come from? It comes from you, your salary, your investments. We've already seen fuel taxes jump back up, excise rises and cost of living pressures stack up. And this is happening while Australian households already have the second highest household debt levels in the world. So think about the insanity of this. Households are heavily indebted. The government is racing toward 1 trillion in debt. Interest bills are rising. Productivity in this country is extremely weak. And we are supposed to believe that all of this is fine. Well, no, it absolutely is not. This is not one bad year. This is a pattern which has been going on for multiple years. And when you connect all of the dots, 1 trillion doesn't look like a surprise, it looks inevitable. The question is whether anyone is actually going to be held accountable for this, change this, before the bill lands on you, and that will be announced at the May budget. Let's see what they do. Because when governments run out of room, they don't downsize, they're going to reach into your pocket by increased taxes. So this is where we are. Will anyone take responsibility? Will spending finally be controlled? Will growth actually be fixed? Or will we just keep drifting until the next ugly milestone? You deserve to understand what is happening with your country's money. You deserve transparency, and you deserve leadership that treats $1 trillion like it matters, because it does. This was your daily property update. I break this stuff down every single day. Property, the economy, no spin. Subscribe, hit the bell, and stay sharp, because what happens next will define the next decade.